Welcome, curious minds, to the SpeedLearn Podcast.
Great to be here.
Today we're exploring two, really deeply connected topics that shape our health, maybe in ways we don't even fully realize.
Mm-hmm.
First up, the often, let's say, misunderstood world of sugar. And then we're going to flip the script entirely and explore the fascinating science of not eating what's often called time-restricted feeding.
It's a great pairing, actually. Sugar and the absence of it.
Exactly. Our goal here is really to cut through some of the noise, maybe challenge a few beliefs, and uncover some surprising insights from the sources you've shared with us.
And we want to keep it relaxed, like we're just chatting, figuring this stuff out together, breaking down the complex bits into clear takeaways.
Perfect. Okay, let's jump right in then. Sugar.
For years, we've heard so much conflicting stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Cavities when you're a kid, weight gain as an adult.
Yeah, health concerns. But what if a lot of what we think we know isn't quite the full picture?
That's often the case. One of the biggest questions, and something our sources from Baptist Health South Florida really dig into, is this idea, is sugar truly addictive? What's the thinking there?
Right. It's a super common belief, and you can kind of see why.
Yeah.
But the Baptist Health take, looking purely at the scientific evidence, suggests it's maybe not addictive in the same way we think about, say, drugs.
Okay. How so?
Well, our bodies have this primal need for fuel, right? Especially glucose. Our brain basically runs on it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we eat sugar, yeah, our brain's reward system lights up. It's getting that essential fuel signal. But here's the kicker, according to them. Unlike controlled substances, they don't really see those classic documented withdrawal symptoms when people cut out sugar.
Ah, okay. No shakes or serious physical withdrawal.
Not in the same documented way. There was a study in the journal Appetite back in 2017 that found, pretty limited evidence for actual dependency on sugary foods, the way we understand drug dependency.
Okay, so that's one perspective. But I know our other sources add some layers to this, right? It makes it a bit more complicated.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting. Nicole Lavina, from her TED Talks and research, she kind of bridges the gap.
Yeah.
She agrees, yes, sweet taste hits the brain's reward system.
Right.
But she argues that if you overactivate that system repeatedly, intensely, you can end up with behaviors that definitely look like addiction. Loss of control, intense cravings, needing more for the same effect.
Tolerance, basically.
Exactly. Tolerance. And dopamine is key here. Sugar triggers dopamine, no doubt. But if you keep consuming it in excess, that dopamine response, it doesn't really level off like it might with other rewards.
It just keeps hitting the button.
It keeps rewarding you, yeah. Almost, as she puts it, behaving a little bit like a drug. Her work with rats showed binge-like sugar consumption caused neurochemical changes, kind of similar to drugs of abuse. Smaller scale maybe, but similar pathways.
Wow. Okay, so maybe not chemically addictive in the classic sense, but behaviorally. Very powerful.
That's a good way to put it. And then you have Dr. Robert Lustig, who we heard from in the Diary of a CEO podcast. He's much more direct. He just flat out calls sugar addictive.
Really? No hedging?
Nope. He points out that, look, the food industry knows this. Why else would, 73% of grocery items have added sugar? It makes people buy more. He calls it hacking the mind.
Hacking the mind. Strong words.
Yeah, and he makes this distinction between pleasure, which he says is dopamine, short-lived, something you often seek alone, like with sugar, versus true happiness, which is serotonin, long-lasting, more social, and you can't get it from a substance.
That's a fascinating distinction, pleasure versus happiness.
And he even talks about seeing what he considers actual withdrawal in kids taking off sugar. Said they were, quote, obnoxious for 5 days, and then their concentration just massively improved.
Okay, so pulling this together, it sounds like the answer to is sugar addictive is it depends. Depends on the definition, the amount, the pattern of use.
Precisely. It's not black and white. The context, the quantity, maybe even when in life you're exposed. It all seems to play a role, especially those binge-like patterns. It's not just an empty calorie. It's sending powerful signals to your brain.
Which leads nicely into the next common idea. Is all sugar bad? Should we be scared of, eating an apple?
Right. Good question.
Yeah.
And no, definitely not, according to Baptist Health. They draw a really crucial line here. Chemically, sure, sugar is sugar, but the source is everything.
Refined versus natural.
Exactly. The real issue is refined sugar, the stuff added everywhere, versus the natural sugars you find in whole foods like fruit, dairy, even complex carbs like whole grains. They strongly advise against cutting those out unless a doctor tells you to.
Why?
Because those whole foods give you fuel, yes, but also fiber, vitamins, minerals, essential stuff. Cutting them out might mean you miss key nutrients, Or worse, you end up replacing those calories with, well, more refined sugar or artificial sweeteners.
Which we'll get to. But first, what about the kids bouncing off the walls? That sugar high thing, is that real?
Huh? Every parent wonders this, right? Baptist Health says the science on this is actually pretty inconclusive. It might not be a sugar rush at all.
Ah.
Some studies suggest that a big sugar hit can actually cause a temporary drop in blood sugar, later hypoglycemia. To fix that, your body might release adrenaline.
Ah, the fight or flight hormones.
Yep. And that might look like hyperactivity, followed by the inevitable sugar crash. So it's less about the sugar giving energy and more about the body's messy response to it.
Interesting. So the advice there is just moderation.
Pretty much stick to the dietary guidelines. Keep added sugar under 10% of your daily calories. That helps manage those swings.
Okay, good to know. Let's move to something more serious, though. The link between sugar and diabetes. We often hear sugar causes diabetes. Is it that direct?
That's a really important clarification. According to Baptist Health, sugar doesn't directly cause diabetes. It's more indirect.
Oh.
It's about excess calories. If you consistently take in more calories than you burn, whether they come from sugar, fat, whatever your body stores the excess as fat, over time, this leads to weight gain and potentially obesity. And obesity is a major risk factor for type 2 diabetes.
So sugar contributes to the conditions that lead to diabetes, but isn't the sole cause itself.
Exactly. The two biggest predictors are actually genetics and overall lifestyle. So if you have a family history, or if you're overweight, inactive, maybe smoke, your risk goes way up. The best defense is a healthy lifestyle, exercise, good diet, and yes, limiting those refined sugars, especially if you know you're already at risk.
Makes sense. And while we're talking about alternatives, what about artificial sweeteners, marketed as the healthy choice, are they?
Yeah, this is a fascinating point from Baptist Health. They actually recommend sticking with real natural sugar in moderation over artificial ones.
Really? Why?
Their concern is multifaceted. These things, saccharin, aspartame, are chemicals. They might be habit-forming in their own way, or even alter your taste buds so natural foods seem less appealing.
Huh. Didn't think about the taste bud thing.
Yeah, and some research, like from the Arthritis Foundation, links them to increased inflammation. Plus, there's growing evidence they can mess with the bacteria in your gut.
The microbiome again. It keeps coming up.
It does. It really brings to mind Michael Pollan's simple advice. If it's a plant, eat it. If it was made in a plant, don't.
That's pretty clear advice. So, okay, sugar clearly isn't just about cavities or putting on weight. It seems to have these deeper effects. Brain, gut. Let's dig into that connection more.
Yes, this is where it gets really critical, I think. Harvard Medical School points out, look, the brain needs glucose. It's the main fuel. But too much is definitely bad.
How bad?
Well, things like high fructose intake are linked to faster cell aging, and excess glucose, linked in animal studies to problems with memory and thinking.
Okay.
But there's this incredible study by Emily Noble and her colleagues. They looked at rats given sugar early in life. It impaired their hippocampal-dependent memory. It's like remembering the context of something where an event happened.
Like where you parked your car, you mentioned earlier.
Exactly like that. But here's the really surprising part. This happened even though the rats didn't eat more calories overall, gain more weight, or get fatter. They naturally ate less of the regular food to compensate.
Whoa, wait, so it wasn't just the side effects of getting fat, the sugar itself was doing something to their memory.
That's what it looks like. The sugar itself seemed to be the problem. And the link they found, the gut microbiome.
There it is again.
Yep. Sugar consumption significantly changed their gut bacteria. Specifically, they saw an increase in types like parabacteroids. And the more parabacteroids the rats had, the worse their memory performance was.
A direct correlation.
Strong correlation. And to test it, they actually took those specific bacteria and gave them to other healthy rats. And guess what?
Their memory got worse.
Both types of memory. They tested the context memory and simple object recognition. It suggests these gut bugs might be messing with the gut lining, maybe causing inflammation that reaches the brain, or affecting the liver-gut communication pathway.
That gut-brain axis.
Yeah.
It's just incredible how connected it all is.
It really is. And it seems that early life window is particularly sensitive to these gut influences on brain development.
Man. Okay, so we have gut issues, potential memory issues. What else?
Well, Dr. Tidman from Keto 101 really hammers home the connection between high sugar intake and insulin resistance. He calls it the absolute core problem behind poor metabolic health.
Which includes?
The explosion of type 2 diabetes since the late 70s, he calls it, largely acquired. Obesity, obviously.
No.
and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which he says they're now seeing in kids like 8 or 10 years old, not just alcoholics anymore.
That's terrifying in kids that young.
It is. He explains the mechanism.
Yeah.
Sugar causes fat buildup in the liver. The liver gets overwhelmed, so the pancreas has to pump out tons more insulin to try and manage the blood sugar.
Right.
But that super high insulin level then blocks leptin. Leptin is the hormone that tells your brain, hey, we've got enough energy, stop eating.
So if leptin is blocked,
You feel hungry all the time, even if you've just eaten? And lethargic. His mantra is simple. Fix the insulin, fix the problem.
wow. And Dr. Lustig added even more concerns, didn't he?
He did. He linked sugar not just to physical issues, but also mental health problems, cognitive decline, earlier death, and even suggested it's a primary driver of ADHD.
Okay, this is a lot. Sugar has some really deep, potentially negative impacts.
It definitely seems that way, especially refined added sugars in excess.
So what does this all mean for us? If sugar has these complex effects, what about the other side of the coin? What happens when we strategically don't eat? How can we use that? Let's shift gears now. Time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting. What's the science?
Right, let's flip it. This is where we see the body's incredible ability to adapt. The key concept is the metabolic switch.
Okay.
When you fast, meaning you just don't consume food for a decent stretch, your body eventually has to change how it gets energy. After about, say, 10 to 14 hours, maybe faster if you exercise, it runs low on readily available glucose in its stored form, glycogen.
So it needs a new fuel source.
Exactly. It switches to burning stored body fat. And when it burns fat, it produces these molecules called ketones.
Ketones. I've heard of those, especially with keto diets. They're important for more than just fat burning, right? Like for the brain.
Absolutely. Ketones, specifically beta-hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetate, actually become the brain's preferred fuel when you're in that fasted fat-burning state.
Preferred. More than glucose.
It seems so in that
Yeah.
state. There was this really cool study in 2016, Korches and Lawyer et al. They put people on a 4-day high-fat ketogenic diet. Their blood ketone levels went up 8 times.
Yeah.
And get this, their brain's use of ketones went up 6 times, while its use of glucose went down by 20%.
Wow. So the brain literally switched fuels. It started using less glucose and way more ketones.
Precisely. It shows this direct shift. The brain adapts, uses more ketones, and kind of spares glucose. It's like becoming more coefficient.
That's incredible. So this metabolic switch, it's clearly not just about losing weight then. You're talking about changing how the brain itself functions. What are the other benefits?
Oh, the benefits seem to go way beyond weight management. It's about overall health and optimization. For instance, Dr. Eric Berg points out that around 12 hours into a fast, you get this significant spike in growth hormone.
Growth hormone. Isn't that for kids growing?
It is, but in adults, it's like your body's natural repair crew. It helps with anti-aging, burning fat, healing joints, even building protein. It's powerful stuff.
Okay, 12 hours, growth hormone boost. What's next?
Then push it a bit further, maybe to around 18 hours, and you trigger autophagy.
Autophagy sounds technical.
That just means self-eating. But it's a good thing. It's your cell's recycling program. They start cleaning out old, damaged proteins, junk parts, even things like those amyloid plaques linked to Alzheimer's.
So your body literally takes out the trash at a cellular level. That's amazing.
It is. Think of it as the deep spring clean for your cells. It happens when certain growth pathways like mTOR are turned down, signaling time to repair, not grow.
Okay, cellular cleanup. What about the brain directly?
Big benefits there, too. Fasting stimulates the production of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
BDNF sounds important.
It really is. Brainfacts.org explains it's crucial for learning, memory, even growing new neurons, especially in the hippocampus, your memory center. It also makes your existing neurons tougher, more resistant to stress. Think better brain plasticity, better resilience.
Wow. So fasting could literally make your brain work better and be stronger?
The evidence points that way. Plus, we see a big drop in inflammation. Fasting seems to reduce the number of inflammatory cells circulating in your blood.
Less inflammation is almost always good.
Almost always. And don't forget the gut.
Hmm.
We talked about how sugar can mess it up. Well, fasting gives your gut a rest, a chance to heal and repair. Dr. Berg suggests it can help with things like SIBO, that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and even boost stem cell production in the gut lining.
So a full gut reset too.
And related to that, time-restricted eating helps restore the natural daily rhythms of your gut bacteria, leading to better diversity. which, as we saw, connects back to brain health and everything else.
It really feels like a whole system tune-up.
It does. Metabolically, you get better blood sugar control, better insulin sensitivity, the opposite of what sugar overload does. Ketones themselves can even act as appetite suppressants and antioxidants.
And you mentioned neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah, animal studies are promising. Intermittent fasting seems to reduce those amyloid plaques and slow down cognitive decline, possibly by boosting those stress resistance pathways in neurons.
And in humans.
Some human studies show even a 14-hour overnight fast can reduce amyloid precursor protein, which is involved in plaque formation. And periodic fasting has shown potential to improve cognition in older adults who already have some mild cognitive impairment.
This is genuinely eye-opening. It really hammers home that when you eat can be just as critical as what you eat. How does this all link up with our body's internal clocks, our daily rhythms?
Great question. That brings us to circadian rhythms. These are our built-in 24-hour clocks that regulate pretty much everything: sleep, hormones, metabolism, you name it. Andrew Huberman explains that something like 80% of our genes run on a 24-hour cycle.
80%? Wow.
And while light, especially sunlight, is the main cue that sets these clocks, food is the second most powerful cue.
Food timing sets our clocks.
It strongly influences them.
Yeah.
So time-restricted feeding, basically, eating consistently within a specific window during your active part of the day, usually daytime for humans, helps sync up all those internal clock genes. Think of genes like PER, BMAL, CRY1, getting them all singing from the same song sheet.
And that synchronization is good for health.
Studies in mice, and increasingly in humans, show it leads to significant positive health effects. But, and this is crucial, Huberman stresses consistency. If your eating window shifts around a lot, like eating much later on weekends, it can disrupt that synchrony and wipe out many of the benefits.
Routine matters. Your body likes predictability.
It really seems to thrive on it, especially for these clock-related benefits.
Okay, so this isn't just a diet. It's more like aligning your lifestyle with your biology for optimal function. For listeners thinking, okay, I'm curious, how do I try this? What are some practical tips? And what pitfalls should they watch out for?
Good practical points. First, Huberman suggests making your overnight fast longer. A good starting point is no food for at least 2 hours, maybe ideally 3, before you go to bed. Gives your digestion time to finish up.
Okay, stop eating a few hours before sleep. What about the eating window itself?
An 8-hour window seems to be a really well-studied and effective target for many people. So you might eat between, say, 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., or 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. That gives you a 16-hour fast overnight.
16.8, I've heard that ratio. Should people just jump into an 8-hour window?
Probably not the best idea. It can be a shock to the system. Better to ease into it. Maybe start by just pushing your breakfast back an hour for a few days, then another hour. Or stop eating an hour earlier in the evening. Gradually shrink the window over maybe a week or two.
Let your body adjust. Avoid that hangry feeling.
Exactly. Let your hormones adapt gently. Also, something called glucose clearing can help the transition into the fasted state.
Glucose clearing.
Yeah, just some light activity after your last meal, like a 20-30-minute walk. It helps clear glucose from your bloodstream faster, helps you switch over to fat burning a bit sooner. Even some higher intensity exercise earlier in the day, maybe afternoon or evening, can help deplete glycogen stores.
A walk after dinner? Simple enough. What about during the fast? What can you have? What definitely breaks it?
Okay, the basics. Water, black coffee, plain tea, totally fine. They generally don't break a fast. Caffeine in a pill form is also okay.
Coffee is allowed. Good news for many.
Yes. Pure fats, like maybe a teaspoon of MCT oil or coconut oil in coffee. That's a bit of a gray area. It might not break the fast metabolically, especially if you're already fat adapted, but some argue any calories count. Definitely things like sugary drinks, soda, juice, they break the fast, and obviously a full meal like pizza does too.
What about zero-calorie sweeteners, like stevia or diet soda?
That's where the data gets mixed, as Huberman puts it. For some people, they seem fine. For others, they might cause a small insulin spike or blood sugar dip, or even paradoxically increase hunger later.
So it's individual.
Very individual. Best to experiment and see how you feel. Maybe even use a continuous glucose monitor for a while if you really want to know precisely how things affect you.
Okay. And what if you feel kind of shaky or lightheaded during the fast, especially when starting out?
Very common. A simple trick many find helpful is a tiny pinch of salt, sea salt, or even just table salt in some water. Maybe add a squeeze of lemon or lime. It tastes better and might slightly blunt blood glucose.
Salt. Why salt?
When you fast, and especially if you drink caffeine, which is a diuretic, you can lose electrolytes, including sodium. That loss can contribute to feeling jittery or lightheaded. A little salt can help stabilize things, improve concentration even.
Interesting tip. What about people focused on fitness, building muscle? Does fasting interfere with that?
Good question. If muscle gain or maintenance is a top priority, some research suggests getting some protein in relatively early in your eating window, say before 10 a.m. if you wake at 7, might be beneficial for muscle protein synthesis. This seems helpful regardless of when you actually lift weights.
So front load protein a bit within the window. Got it. Are there any major cautions, times when fasting might not be a good idea?
Absolutely. It's not for everyone.
Hmm.
Some people just feel lousy mood crashes, hormone disruption, very short eating windows like only 4-6 hours or doing one meal a day, OMAD, might negatively impact hormones for some, especially hard training athletes potentially lowering free testosterone.
Okay.
Extreme calorie restriction, which can sometimes accompany fasting if not careful, can impact fertility, both men and women. The body senses scarcity and dials down reproductive functions.
Survival mode.
Pretty much. Also, remember, your body doesn't really know the difference between physical stress, like hard exercise, and psychological stress, like exams or relationship conflict. Both trigger cortisol and adrenaline. So during really high stress periods, adding the stress of a very strict fast might be counterproductive.
Listen to your body, especially during tough times.
Exactly. It really boils down to careful self-experimentation. Start slow, pay attention, see what works for you. And there are tools to help. The My Circadian Clock website from Dr. Sachin Panda's lab lets you log food and learn more. And the Zero app is great for just tracking your fasting and eating windows.
Excellent resources. Okay, let's try and wrap this all up. What an incredible journey we've taken. From really unpacking sugar myths, realities, the surprising impact on our brain and gut, all the way to the power of not eating, of strategic fasting.
Yeah, from debunking myths like sugar causing diabetes directly or whether it's truly addictive, to understanding how our eating schedule itself can trigger things like autophagy, boost growth hormone, and fuel our brains with ketones.
It's so clear that both what we eat, especially regarding added sugars, and when we eat, have these profound interconnected effects, not just on weight, but on hormones, brain function, gut health, cellular repair, our overall well-being.
Absolutely. And if you connect it all, it really comes down to understanding these biological levers we can pull to shift the conditions inside our bodies towards health, towards longevity.
Yeah.
It's not about finding one rigid diet rule, but about understanding the mechanisms.
Right.
The science strongly suggests that making even small but consistent tweaks to when you fuel your body, combined with being really mindful of those added sugars, can unlock these powerful natural processes, boosting growth hormone, kicking off that cellular cleanup with autophagy, feeding your brain BDNF.
So the final thought for you, listening. What's one small, simple change you might explore? Based on all this, how could you start creating slightly better conditions for your own unique body, tapping into those amazing processes we all have?
It really highlights the incredible power we have, doesn't it? Just by being a bit more intentional about how and when we fuel ourselves. It's quite empowering when you think about it.